All right, folks, this is Monk with Sofa King News, and I'm talking with Keith Maitland, right? That's awesome. He's got two films here. The first one I want to talk about is The Tower. Being a Texan and having traveled the U.S. that I have, it's amazing how many people don't really know the story of Tower, but those who do. So I wanted to get your idea of what angle you were coming, what part of the story are we telling here? What was your inspiration?
Well, I went to the University of Texas, and I was aware of the shooting, but I really didn't get a lot of information about it before going there. And so when I went to campus as a freshman, I really hoped I'd learn about this dark day in Texas history. That wasn't the case. The university didn't have a relationship with sharing this history. And so because of that, I'm not surprised a lot of people don't know about this story. But in the making of this film, we decided to focus on the events of that day through the eyes of the people who were on the ground, the people who were most directly impacted by the sniper's fire. So it was students who were shot at, people that were shot and survived, those that ran for their lives and those that ran towards the victims to render aid, and the police and media who followed through on their duty to report on it and to end the massacre.
Wow, and I have to ask, with that many people to talk to, how many hours of footage did you have, honestly?
Well, documentary filmmaking is a little bit like being a private eye. And so a lot of it's like a little bit like being on a stakeout. I do long form interviews with way more people than can actually fit into the movie. So I don't even keep track at this point of how many hours of footage, but I can tell you that I think we had 16 terabytes of footage. So for the nerds out there who know what that means, it's a lot. But it's what you have to do to make sure that you can tell a story from a full and thorough approach and a respectful and sensitive take on it.
Right. And last question on this one, what was probably the most shocking story out of all of these to you about that incident?
The biggest thing that really stood out to me was that nearly every single person I interviewed said the same thing. They said, we never talked about it. Nobody ever talked about it with them, and they never talked about it with anyone else. And so these victims, these folks that had lived through this horrific event, have spent the last 50 years carrying around the trauma of that. And through the making of the film, by nature of interviewing them, I asked them to relive some of these dark, deep memories. And it brought a lot of stuff to the surface. And most of the people that I worked with felt that was a cathartic experience. And I think it comes through in the film.
Very good. So now let's talk about a song for you, Austin City Limits. I grew up on this show. So I gotta ask, it's a very well-known show. What made you want to cover this?
Well, the opportunity to go dig through 40 years of incredible live music performances is a hard one to pass up. So I'm a huge music fan. And, the very first episode of Austin City Limits was with Willie Nelson way back in 1974 when he was an up-and-coming artist. It's hard to imagine, but Willie, at the age of 40, was not a household name. He was a successful songwriter, but he wasn't known as a performer, and he didn't have the national reputation he now has. I think part of the reason he has it now is because of his role on Austin City Limits. So they work together in partnership, the show and Willie. And I love Willie Nelson, so it was real easy for me to jump on board. And the very first thing I did when I got the go-ahead to make this film was to book an interview with Willie on his bus and spend as much time with him as I could.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, and I think you may answer this question, what was your favorite performance to have to go through?
Well, there's so many, but I love Willie. But, my favorite more modern band is a band that I saw as a teenager here in Dallas at Reunion Arena. They opened for U2 in 1993, and that's the Pixies.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, Pixies played on the show in 2005, and that performance is just... it'll peel the paint off the walls when Frank Black, or Black Francis as he's known, opens up and lets out that famous howl. But I'm a fan and I love it. But it's just one of the many. I got to interview 50 artists.
Wow.
So we interviewed Jeff Bridges, Lyle Lovett, Loretta Lynn, Bonnie Raitt, Gary Clark Jr., Shakey Graves, Kerry Rodriguez.
Man, I'm jealous now.
Yeah, the list goes on and on. So it was just a lot of fun. And I hope audiences, when they watch the film, they're tapping their toes. And I hope, when the thing ends, they'll tune into PBS on Saturday nights, or they'll go look up some of their favorite acts on YouTube. A lot of it's out there.
Awesome. Well, as a musician, I look forward to seeing that one for sure. Thank you so much for talking with me today. Monk with Sofa King News, and I'm brought to you by ApertureRent.com.